Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So this is my January reading wrap up and February TBR video. So I want to start by kind of explaining what I'm going to be doing with my reading wrap up videos because it's a little bit different than what I've previously been doing. What I had been doing all the other months since I started this back, I think my first reading wrap up video was for September of 2014. And every month I've just been talking about the books that I read for the past month. But I've decided to change those videos up slightly and add a TBR element to it. So what TBR is in the booktube kind of universe, it stands for to be read. And basically it would be like booktubers just talking about the books that they're planning to read for the upcoming month. So I decided that since I'm very goal-oriented and it seemed to really fit with the sort of Project Pants and other sort of goal, use it up sort of challenges and like goal-themed videos, I thought doing a TBR each month where I pick out specific books that I want to try to read during the month, I thought that that would work out really well for me and it would be a nice kind of addition to my reading wrap-up videos. And then that way, I do have specific reading goals for 2015. This will help me kind of stay on track with my reading goals. And also, it will be interesting to kind of compare each month what I read to what I was planning to read. So I am planning each month to still do my reading wrap-ups, but then also discuss my plans for the upcoming month in terms of books that I want to read. So let me get started with the books that I read in January. So January was a really busy month for me. It was really busy at work. Plus I was sick and, life gets in the way. And I do have a goal of reading 4 books a month. But in January, I was only able to read 2. So, it happens. The first book I read, it was at the very beginning of January, was We Were Liars by Lockhart. And all the books I talk about, I will list down below. If you don't catch the name or the author, or if you want to look it up, I will include that listing down below. So this is the first book I read for the month, and it's a pretty short book, so I read it pretty quickly. I don't want to say a lot about this book because it is a book that I don't want to spoil for anyone, and it's a book best going into kind of knowing nothing. But this came out this past summer in 2014, and I saw a lot of hype about this book, and my expectations were super high for this book, and sadly, the book really didn't meet my expectations. I just thought it was just okay. I wasn't blown away by it. I don't know what if it was. The style of this book is quite poetic. So I don't know if it's just that I couldn't get into the style or I didn't care about the characters. The main characters are a rich family that live in the summertime, they live in a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. So I don't know if I just didn't really care about the characters. I don't know. This book was just okay for me. Another kind of disappointing thing is I kind of figured out what was going to happen before it was revealed in the book. So that was kind of disappointing. It didn't blow me away. I wasn't super amazed by it. And I think a lot of it had to do with all the hype that I heard about this book and read about this book. So I had very high expectations. I think if I would have gone into this book, knowing nothing about it and hearing no hype or no other people's reviews on it, maybe it would have changed my opinion when I read this book, but I think my expectations were just so high going in this book, and it just didn't really live up to them. So this one, not my favorite. And the other book I read in January is 3 Wishes by Moriarty. So this author, I've listened to 2 other audiobooks by her, The Husband's Secret and Big Little Lies. I loved both of the audiobooks. This is the book, I got this for Christmas, and this is the first time I've actually read a book by this author, and I have to say I love this one as well. It makes me think I have a few other books by this author. It makes me think I'm going to love all of them. She just writes books that are my favorite sort of novel, I guess. So in this book, there's 3 main characters. There are 3 female triplets who are 33. So lots of 3s. But it just talks about, kind of their relationship with each other. They're all very different, so it kind of looks into like what kind of made them into the way they are. Talks about their relationship with their parents, of course, relationships like their romantic relationships, relationships with other members of their family. I found this really, really interesting. I really love books about family dynamics, about females and relationships. So this definitely was up my alley, and I found this really entertaining. I really, really enjoyed it. And definitely if you like books like that, I definitely would recommend this one. So those are the 2 books that I read for January. Now moving on to my February TBR. So the first book that I have on my TBR, and this book I had done in 2014 towards the end of the year, I had done an Unread Books video where I talked about all the books that I have on my shelf. I have a handful of books on my bookshelf that are unread that I've had for quite a few years. And it is one of my goals in 2015 to just read these books. Either read them, give them all a fair shot and just get through and read them, or if they are just not something I'm ever going to read, just kind of pass them on. So in January, I actually had started this book, and by started, I read about 16 pages and was just like, this is not a January book, especially not when I'm so busy, and yeah, that's just not going to happen. So this is Lady Almina. I can never pronounce anything. And the Real Downton Abbey. And it's by the Countess of Carnarvon. So this is a nonfiction book, and the main character in this book is kind of the real life inspiration for Lady Cora on Downton Abbey. And Lady Almina actually lived at Highclere Castle, where Downton Abbey is currently filmed. So it's really supposed to be like the real life inspiration for Downton Abbey. I really love the television show, so I think this is definitely something that I would enjoy. I just really wasn't in the mood to read it in January, but I do want to give it another shot. And this might be the type of book that I just read a little bit at a time, but I do want to give this another fair shot versus the 20-minute shot that I gave it in January. So I do want to read some more of this during February. And I did include another unread book that I've had for a long time for my February TBR, and this is The Friendship Test by Elizabeth Noble. And I don't really know a lot about this book. This must have been a few years ago. I didn't notice I had a bookmark in here. I guess I read about 20 pages of this previously and then just gave up on it. I do want to give this one another shot. This one is one that I'm kind of questioning if I'm actually going to be able to get through it. But I do want to give it another fair shot and see, is it something that I actually can read and get through, or I just want to pass it on. So I do want to give this book another shot. And then for my 2015 reading goals, I do have a goal of rereading 15 books during 2015. And with that, I specifically wanted to reread the Jessica Darling series by Megan McCafferty. This is the first book in the series, Sloppy First. There's 5 books in that series overall, so I thought it'd be good to start on that sort of checking off books, rereading books, getting through that goal, starting on that goal. So I decided I'd want to start with this series. I really love this series. I've reread this book multiple times, and I'm really excited to reread it again. So I think that will be no problem to read in February. And then the last 2 books I have in my TBR are both books that I got or purchased for myself in December. The first one is the 16th and final book in the Pretty Little Liars series, and this came out in December. This is Vicious by Sara Shepard. And if you've been reading my reading wrap-up or watching my reading wrap-up videos for the previous months, you know that I have been reading through the Pretty Little Liars. I had maybe 4 or 5 books to read before I could read this one. So I definitely want to finish out the series and just see what happens. I'm excited to read this one. And the final book is also a conclusion of series. And this is Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. And I think this has been the last few months. I read Anna and the French Kiss, which is the first book in the series, then Lola and the Boy Next Door, and finally Isla and the Happily Ever After is the third book in that series. And they're kind of companion novels, but I'm really excited to read this one, kind of the conclusion of the companion series. And this one I think takes place in New York and Paris, so I'm really excited, based on the settings of this book, to read this one as well. So that is everything. Those are the books I read for January and the books I'm planning to read in February. Of course, if you've read any of these books, please let me know down below your thoughts on them. And then, of course, if you have any book recommendations for me, please let me know that as well. So that is everything. Thanks for watching. Bye.